Hey, this is Paul from Twist and Shout, and this is volume 12 of Tales of the Wall. And this is a series where I explain the various memorabilia and posters and things that are on the wall here at Twist and Shout. And volume 12 is going to be all Kiss. We're going to do a Kiss special this time. And Kiss, I have a long and interesting relationship with Kiss. When they were at their peak, starting in the 70s, I really wanted nothing to do with them. I looked down on them, and this was when I was in high school, and they just were not my thing at all. Although I had a friend in 12th grade, I guess. They played at McNichols Arena in 1977 or 78, and I had a friend I sat next to in homeroom, and he had an extra ticket, or somehow I ended up getting a ticket and sitting near him, and I saw the show, and it was incredible in terms of showmanship. I still wasn't convinced of them musically, but what a show. And the guy who from my class ended up being one of the really world great Kiss collectors, Dave Massey, and I think he's still around, and I think he's still collecting Kiss. Anyway, that was my first kind of exposure to him. But I was never really a fan, and I've had to learn about them as a retailer from selling Kiss. So, the items that we have in the store, first and foremost, there is a big cardboard framed picture of the 4 Kiss faces with makeup when they did their 4 solo albums in 1978. They did Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss, and that was the name of each of the albums. It said Kiss, Gene Simmons, etc. And where I got that poster is when I bought the store at the auction in 1988. There was very little of value in the store, and I really had to build the inventory from scratch with my own collection. But then about a month after being here, I discovered an attic in the original store over there on 724 South Pearl Street, and in the attic was a bunch of posters, and I've kept almost all of them. There were some really interesting, like European gig posters of really cool bands, like Brian Auger and Fairport Convention, and from the early 70s, and this big cardboard Kiss thing. And I remember pulling it out and saying to Jill, oh well, if we got nothing else of value from this store, at least we got this big Kiss thing. And it was the first thing I ever paid for the store to get framed, and I put it up, and it was a really big item for us because I paid probably a couple $100 to get it framed, which I didn't have at all at the time. And the Kiss fan base, the kind of harder rock fan base, started to notice our store partially because of that item. So it was a real good foot in the door for that fan base. So that was my first Kiss thing. Next came the Kiss pinball machine, which you may have noticed if you look up, way up top in our loft. You'll maybe see part of it, but we'll show you some pictures of it. And here's an interesting thing about collecting. I don't remember who I got it from. I remember it was in the first 2 or 3 years of the store, and I remember I got both a Rolling Stones pinball machine and a Kiss pinball machine, and I bought them from customers, but I don't exactly remember who. But it's a lesson. I've always evaluated collectibles based on what they are, not what I think of the band. And when they came in, I remember being like, oh, I should buy this. This is cool. And I bought it, and I've always had it. And we used to have it displayed in the store. I sold the Stones one since, but the Kiss one, we've always had it. Now it takes up too much room, so it sits upstairs. But it's a great piece of memorabilia, and if anybody wants to buy it, I'd probably sell it. Next, I have the Coke mirrors. These things kill me. In probably the first 5 years of the store, someone brought in a box of records, and there was a bunch of Kiss and Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, hard rock. A lot of them were really scratched. I remember this buy for some reason, And then at the back of the box were these 4 Kiss Coke mirrors, and they just cracked me up because Kiss has a very explicit anti-drug message, and Gene Simmons has claimed to never done any drugs or anything, and here were these 4 Kiss Coke mirrors. I just thought it was real funny, and I've always held on to them. They're probably not licensed, but they're really funny. Next we have, here's a good story. So in 1990, Kiss played McNichols Arena with makeup, and they put 4, 5-story blow-up dolls of themselves out in front of McNichols Arena on I-25. Huge, gigantic. And they were going to tour again with makeup, and, my wife Jill said as being the co-owner of a record store, had learned a lot about Kiss and its fans, and not that much about their music, but just what a funny band they were and how funny they looked and everything. And she said, I want to go see Kiss. She never wants to go see anything. She said, I want to go see Kiss. They look like they'd be a lot of fun. I was like, no, don't make me do this. I don't want to go to Kiss. But she prevailed, and we went, and we got really good seats. And this was 1990. I can actually tell you the date. It was McNichols Arena, December 14th, 1990. And we went, and we had a couple customers who were really into Kiss and were regulars in the store. And I was always like, oh man, Kiss isn't that good, just calm down. And I said to Jill, well, I'll go to the show, but I hope, nobody sees me, and I hope we can just be quiet. And so we get there, and as soon as they come on, she's totally loving it. And admittedly, I was too. They really are fun to see. And they have a gigantic jumbotron behind the screen. And probably on one of their biggest songs, I don't even remember which one, Firehouse or something, sure enough, guess who comes up on the jumbotron? My face. So then the next day all the Kiss fans were in, hey, I saw you on the screen, I thought you didn't like Kiss. Funny. It was a very funny episode, and I'll tell you this, I kept a good sense of humor about it, and it actually made me like Kiss more and think, this band truly is funny, and now I have a connection with them in some way. So that's, a good friend of mine named Brad Niederman was a photographer at the time, and he was down in the pit at that show, and he was taking photos, and the next day after that show he came in, because during the show Paul Stanley, the guitar player, breaks 10 different guitars probably during the course of the show, smashing them, lighting them on fire and exploding them and this, that, and the other thing, and then throwing them out into the audience. Brad caught a big piece of one of Paul Stanley's guitars, so that's what that is. That is a Paul Stanley guitar from that December 1990 show at McNichols Arena. So that's that item. Next we have the Drumhead. The Drumhead was another item that just came in as part of a big collection. And they had a bunch of Kiss memorabilia. They had dolls, they had this, they had that, and it was all latter day. Now Kiss, like other bands, but no band has ever taken it to the extreme and made it an art the way Kiss has, marketing. Kiss's greatest legacy will be how they marketed themselves. And in recent years, they have taken it to an almost absurd level. And this item here that you see, that Drumhead, I think I've researched when it's from. It is from 2006. So it's latter day, probably after Gene already has his television show. They've done countless farewell tours at this point. And I find it interesting. It's a pretty nice thing, but somebody probably at a show paid hundreds of dollars for that thing and then ended up selling it in a collection of stuff here for pennies on the dollar. And the point of it is, buying collectibles at a show or in the heat of the moment is not always the best idea. You should be careful about what you buy. Even though that's a cool item, it didn't hold up. And buying these really expensive collectibles at shows can sometimes bite you in the ass. Final item is a really cool promotional LP called Kiss. First Kiss, Last Licks. And it's a promotional only item, and it came in a collection that I bought really early in the career, and it's I think I may have written down what year it came out, for 1990, so just a couple years after they didn't have makeup, so it's in those years, and I think it's Eric Carr is on the cover. And anyway, they so it was in a collection. I didn't recognize it, and I think it was one of the first records that I actually paid more than $1 or $2 for, and I may have paid $10 or $20 for it because it just looked, this was before the internet, so I couldn't look it up. It just looked really cool to me, so I bought it. And then during one of the tours, and I kept it, and it turned out to be a very desirable, cool Kiss item. And then one of the many tours later, someone who worked for the promoter said, "Hey, I'm going to be backstage. Do you have any good Kiss items you would like signed?" And I had that one at the store, and I said, "Yeah, go ahead and get this signed." And he took it, and sure enough, the next day he came back and it was signed by the band, and so that's that item. So we have that kind of Kiss shrine over there by the aquarium with those 5 items, and then the pinball machine up top, and it's caused a lot of people to really take notice and love the store, and it was a lesson to me all along of this whole rock and roll record store thing is not just about who I think the best band is, or who the greatest guitar player or the greatest songwriter or whatever is. It's about every fan has their own doorway into rock and roll and their own level of fandom, and it means as much, the John Denver fan is as committed as the Neil Diamond fan, as the Kiss fan, as the Slayer fan, as the Grateful Dead head. It's all, everyone deserves respect, and in terms of our store, if it's got a good visual and good color, and it seems like something that really has some kind of culty value, I'm usually willing to at least represent it somehow. And that's the story of our Kiss stuff. This has been Tales of the Wall, Volume 12. I'm Paul, and I'll see you next time.